I am. I'm Laura Weichel. I'm the EVP at the CO Forum and happy to support all of you in your transition. I think everybody knows what we're doing here at the CO Forum with the CO Executives in Transition. We are designed basically here to support you in your transition, and we have a library of resources, as you probably found. If anybody missed last week's session, you need to go into the Mighty Network and check that one out. It was on negotiating, and especially toward the end, we get in a lot of discussion on the topic, and it was really quite good. And we had a small group last week, so I'm guessing most of you might have missed that one. Everything we do here aligns with everything that we do at the CO Forum. And we're here to serve Chief Operating Officers, Second in Command Executives, which, as you know, comes in many different titles. And we are entering our third quarter. We got this started in September of last year, and it's been our privilege and joy actually to work with all of you and hear of a lot of the people landing positions, which we did have last week. We had a couple more people get back in touch with us and let us know that they had landed a job. If anybody knows John Beecham, make sure you reach out to him and congratulate him because he landed a new role. I don't think it's on his profile yet, so it won't tell you what he's doing, but he's excited about what he will be taking on. So make sure you let us know when you land something because we want to be able to celebrate that with you as well. And then also, if you land in anything close to the second in command role, let us know because we'd love to have you at our global meetings, our CO Forum meetings that we hold 4 times a month. Meeting courtesy, if you could mute when Rick's talking, and then also, if you don't mind, if you're able to be on video, to come on video so it makes it easier for Rick to engage with you. Business first, if you have to go off screen or go take care of anything, you know how we work, just take care of that and it's not a big deal. Business language, no politics, because we all know that works better. We are recording the session now, so if you have to jump off for any part of it or want to go back and review any of it, it will be posted in the Mighty Network later today. And of course, keep all your job prospects confidential. And as Rick's presenting, if you have any questions, post them in the chat and I'll make sure that they get synced up with him. Also, I'm sure he won't mind if there's something that comes up that's on topic, just interrupt him. Fiona Murray, you all know Fiona. She is the one who takes care of all of us. So if you need anything, reach out to her directly. You also can reach out to me or Bill or Rick, but Fiona will take care of you more quickly. And with that, I would like to introduce Rick Kloete. I have known Rick for, gosh, how long has it been, Rick? Probably 7 or 8 years.
More than that, Laura. Going on 10.
Has it been 10? Time flies. I had a daughter that was up in Nashville near him going to school, so I had the opportunity to meet Rick in person, and it was a pleasure, and I consider him a great colleague and good friend. But I'm going to give some background because you don't know Rick like I do. So I'll let you know that Rick, he is principal and senior partner at Kloete Group in Nashville, and his firm exists to serve clients by providing research-based retained executive search services with an emphasis on leadership, regardless of function or industry, as well as consulting based upon his client needs. And his philosophy is to approach life, executive recruiting, leadership consulting, and helping clients with creative thinking, determination, and commitment to service. Focused on delivering results is more than 25 years experience in management positions and leadership roles with some of the nation's major IT technology, telecom, communications companies have honed his skills in team building, change management, and sales leadership, IT communications technology, and coaching. The fun side about Rick is he loves playing trumpet. He plays golf, chess, he loves spending time with his family when he is not rooting for his New Orleans Saints and LSU Tigers. He's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to today. And I'd like to turn everything over to Rick now to allow him to get on with his topic. Welcome,
Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate you introducing me. Wow, that's a big introduction. I appreciate that. And Bill, great to be with you again. The only thing she left out was that I was the Nashville chapter director for the COO Forum for about 9 years, and enjoyed every minute of it. Had to take a personal leave due to some family issues, but absolutely loved my time with the COO Forum. Miss you guys. I've been away for a little bit over a year now, and when Laura and Bill invited me to share with you guys, I was super excited to do this. It's what I love to do. I'm kind of a teacher at heart. I was a teacher for 5 years. before I went back into corporate life. But guys, that's not what you're here to talk about. I would love to find out, first of all, again, thank you, Laura, for that great introduction. Who do we have on the call? I'd like to do kind of a roll call. Where are you from and what part of the country are you in? And give me a little background on who's in the group. I don't know what the total number is, Laura. Can you give me some stats on that? Oh, I can't hear you, Laura.
Sorry, we have 20, including you, me, and Fiona.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What part of the country are they in?
Let's see. Well, I know where everybody is, but I've got Dallas, I've got Indianapolis. I think we have San Francisco Bay Area. Jane is in Minneapolis. She's on the treadmill.
Fantastic.
Anybody else can list there, because I don't think Rick can see the chat. So if you want to do it, I can read that off, or you can just go off mic and share where you are.
Seattle.
Liz in
Yeah.
Seattle as well.
The Great Northwest.
Los Angeles.
Atlanta.
Orange County, California.
Portland, Oregon.
Is it Spring Hill, Tennessee too, Rick?
Ah, we have a lot of West Coasters. That's great. Well, guys, I'm glad that you're here. I don't know what the makeup is, how many of you guys are currently in transition, or if you're thinking you're going to be in transition. As an executive recruiter, as you can imagine, I talk to people that are in career transition quite often. Many times they are in transition. Oftentimes they are about to be in transition, so they know that a change is coming, or they would like to make a change. And I would dare say probably everybody on this call has been in career transition at one time or another in their career and life. The reason I'm qualified to talk about this subject is I've been in transition a number of times. Sometimes because I chose to manage my own career. And there were times when my career got managed for me. And, I heard someone say once, either you manage your career or it gets managed for you. After a couple of times being managed, I decided I would take control of the reins and grab hold of the reins and manage my own career. So at the three seats at the table, there are the hiring individuals, there's the candidate, and oftentimes there's a recruiter or a human resources individual. I've been in all three of those seats at numerous times. So what I would tell you is when I went through those career transitions, many times I wanted to pull my guitar out. I live in Nashville and sing that Chris Christopherson song, why me, Lord? What did I ever do? Why am I in transition again? And now looking back on that, nothing could have prepared me better for what I do now than to have gone through transition. I know what it feels like to be a candidate who doesn't get callbacks, from the HR individual or the recruiter. I know what it's like to be the hiring manager who's hired a recruiter to help them fill a key leadership role in the company. And now I'm the recruiter. So I kind of have seen it from all three sides. I've been in transition. I don't know where you guys are today, but what I would love to do today is get inside the heads of those hiring individuals, the hiring manager, the human resources vice president or leader, whomever those decision-making people are, and try to get into their head and think about what's going on with them. What are the questions they're asking? And, the title of this presentation I had given to Bill and Laura was, what are the three questions that all hiring managers ask? And it's not what they ask of candidates, it's what they ask of themselves and each other. So once they've interviewed candidates, they gather, and usually there's a committee or some consensus that's attempted to be formed to decide who do we move forward with. Well, what's going on in their head? So we're going to try to look at that a little bit today, and hopefully we can cover some of that. What's your ultimate goal? Well, it depends on where you are in the process. If you're not in transition today, your goal needs to be probably to increase your network, to build connections, to keep your eyes and ears open. Many times leaders that I talk to are so busy doing their job that they don't prepare for the next step in their career path. So they're not building their network. They're not continuing to make connections or keeping their ear to the ground about what opportunities are available. But I would say that that's something you do need to do. If you're in just the introductory exploratory phase, then obviously when you build your CV or resume, a lot of times I ask candidates, what's the goal of a resume? So I'd like to ask that question to the group and put your answers in chat, and maybe Laura can share it with me. What do you think the goal and the ultimate reason you write or put together a resume is? What's the goal of a resume? Somebody said get a conversation.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, get a meeting, get an interview, right? So one of the things I tell people, ultimately you want to get hired, right? You want to get that next step in your career path, maybe that next new promotion or a bigger scope opportunity in company. But I would tell you that if you're in the introductory phase, the purpose of a resume is simply to get a conversation going, to get an interview. You're not trying to get hired. So don't put everything in the resume. If you put too much in the resume and give away all the goodies, there's no reason for them to meet with you, right? So think about what your goal is and where you are in the process. That's important. The next thing is, how do we get there? Well, if you're in the running, and that's what I'd like to talk about next. If you're in the running, or as the comedian says in the movie, you know, so you're saying I've got a chance, right? You're saying I still have a chance. If you're in the running, oftentimes, if you're talking to an executive recruiter, there are other candidates that are being considered, just like you're probably considering other companies and other opportunities. So here's what I would tell you is that if you're in the running, there are other candidates, and those other candidates are highly qualified, as you can imagine. So what happens if all of the candidates are basically similar in qualification, the same number of years of experience, same education and credentials, same amount of quality of management and industry experience, same industry knowledge or expertise? So all things being equal, how do they make their decision? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, is everybody's involved. You're in the running. You're a candidate. You're equally qualified. How do they make their decision? And so here are some of the things I'd like to talk about. Here's the lineup, right? All the dogs are lined up. We think they're all equal, but they're not. During the interview process, some of those nuances about how qualified or not will come out. But the question is, what are the questions they ask? We're going to pull the curtains back and talk about that. So I want to get right into it because there's a lot of stuff. Question number one. I know you all been waiting for this.
Excuse me, your presentation's not showing
Is it not showing?
to the greater group. No.
No, I think what I was just explaining that his presentation, the way he's using it, he's just doing the snapshots at the bottom. So there's no extra text than what you're seeing on top
Yes,
of the
that's
screen.
correct.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Yes. So let's talk about the three questions that all hiring managers ask themselves. And I'll get into this in detail. And I share with Laura and Bill that I can talk about this topic all day long. I have a lot to share with you, but I really don't want to just give a presentation. So I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. And then I'd like to leave, 20 minutes or so, as much as I can, for Q&A, for questions that you guys might have. You've got me here. I'm here for an hour. Take advantage of me. I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can. And those that I can, I'll be honest with you that I can't. So the first question is about likability. How likable are you? How likable are you compared to the other candidates? Now, you might think that's a pretty simple, fundamental thing. Vince Lombardi used to open up training camp with the Green Bay Packers every year and hand a football to his quarterback and say, guys, let's start right here. This is a football. Well, likability is big. We all know that you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And I would tell you that likability, all things being equal, who do we want to do business with? Who do we want to hire? Who do we want to associate with? People that we like and trust. So likability is a big deal. I'd like to ask you guys, in terms of what makes you likable or more likable than someone else, because after all, it is a competition. They're going to be hiring you to be a leader in their organization. They want their team to like you. So if you can't convince them that you're likable to the hiring committee, they're probably not going to have you high on the list. You're not going to make the final cut. So what are the things that make you likable as a candidate? I'm open for suggestions before I tell you what I think. Anybody?
being genuine.
Genuine, authentic. I like that.
Active listening, engaged.
That's super. I love that one.
I think it's your energy level and your enthusiasm and, how you connect the dots that they think that, that you've seen a lot of scenarios in your history. You've dealt with some really difficult situations and kind of how you come across. But I think smiling also doesn't hurt.
Yes.
And it's one of those things to remind yourself because it's really easy to get very serious in interview mode.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? Authenticity.
Be interested in the interview.
Yes. Yes. Be prepared. Russ, was that Russ? Be prepared to ask good questions. Come prepared with good questions. Absolutely. So I'll tell you some of mine. Everything that was shared, I love. Likability is a big deal. I love the Maya Angelou quote. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but she basically says people may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. That's an emotional connection. So not only smiling, which was mentioned, but using their name, making an emotional connection. Why do you think Starbucks asks you your name? It's not because they got confused over who ordered the latte and who ordered the caramel macchiato, right? It's because they want to call your name. And when you hear your name called, their research has proven that there's an emotional connection made between you and Starbucks, because it's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. They know your name. They don't really know your name. They just called it. But somehow you have more loyalty to that brand because of that one simple thing. That's human psychology, folks. That's likability. So I'll go over these fairly quickly, but a lot of these may seem to be common sense, but we all need to be reminded of these things. Obviously, making a good first impression, smiling, using their name, paying attention, listening, authentically being interested in them and their company and where they're headed. I like to say in the interview, have a conversation. Don't just have an interview. And a conversation means give and take. A lot of folks will go into an interview, and the interviewer asks questions, the recruiter or the hiring manager or the VP or the chief officer, and they'll ask you a question and you just answer the question. I say, do your homework, know what they're all about, know the people you're being interviewed by, and make a personal connection with them. Tell them a little bit about who you are. Laura did a great job of introducing me. One of the things she did say was, I have 6 children. I have a Brady Bunch. My wife and I are a second marriage. We have 4 girls and 2 boys. Only 2 still live with us, but never a dull moment in the Kloete house. When the phone rings, I see caller ID and I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on now? There's no telling in our house, right? But making a personal connection. She told you that I play chess and I play trumpet. Well, if I find out the person interviewing me has a hobby that is in common with me, I'm going to bring that up in the interview, whether they ask me about it or not. That's making an emotional connection. That's improving your likability factor. I would also tell you that the other thing is, when they ask you a question in the interview, I would say answer that question directly. But one of the key things I always have done, and you guys have seen this, so when I describe this, you're going to know what I'm talking about. How many of you have seen, let's say, a politician, a government official, whatever, a person who's under the gun being interviewed on camera about an important issue, maybe a controversial issue, and the reporter asks them a question, sticks the mic under their nose, and they say, that's a fantastic question. Let me get back to that in a moment. But what I'd really like to say is, and they say something, or that's a fantastic question. I'd love to address that. But before, I'd like to talk about this first. And they say what they had prepared to say anyway. You guys have all seen that. And you're sitting here, I'm sitting on this side of the screen saying, they didn't answer the question, but wow, what they said was really impressive. I really liked it. What they just did was they were prepared with something they wanted to present, which I call a power phrase. And they said, they said to themselves, I'm going to wait for the perfect opportunity to introduce this. And it might be when I get asked a question that I'm not sure what the answer is. And I'll say, I'm not really sure what you're looking for there, but here's what I would like to share with you. And you share something that they need to know about you that improves that emotional connection or that likability factor. Another thing about responding to questions and improving likability. So when I ask a question, if somebody just truly avoids the question altogether, sometimes that concerns me unless what they follow it up with is super impressive and something I really want to hear. I also like when people say, I'm not really sure how to answer that. And they say, is this what you're asking me? So sometimes rephrasing the question to say, I think this is what you're after. Is this why you're asking me that question? What you're doing is you're prodding further a little deeper to find out what they're really after. At the same time, you're buying yourself some time, right, to formulate a good answer. It's a really good technique that I've used in the past. So power phrases, insert a power phrase, or ask them to rephrase the question so that you make sure you know what they're looking for, and then you can formulate a good response. Those are all likability factors. Again, people want to hire people that they like and trust. Anything you can do to improve that likability factor, making a personal connection, being prepared with good questions to prove you've done your homework, answering the question directly, and having a conversation, not just an interview. Any questions on that one at all? Anybody want to interject something they think would fit here well? So likability. So when they're sitting in a room and they're considering the 4 to 6 or 7 top finalists, they're saying, all things being equal, who do we like the best? And that's a very subjective question, but everybody's going to be impacted by something you do as a candidate. All right, let's go to the next question. The next question is, and again, this is a how you made them feel Maya Angelou quote. They will forget what you said, but they will remember the emotional impact you had on them and how you made them feel. Unique value is the next one. Do you as a candidate add and bring to the table unique value? What's your unique value proposition? One of the things that I will tell you folks is that there are no zero risk hiring decisions. All hiring decisions involve risk. And the higher in the food chain you go, if you're hiring a new chief operating officer or a chief financial officer or anybody at the C-level, that's an incredibly high risk. In fact, the research proves that the cost of a poor hiring decision at that level can cost a firm 1 to 1.5 times their annual salary. So it's very expensive to make a poor decision. So nobody wants to make a bad decision. The question is, among the candidates that are available, who provides the most unique value? So when I talk about unique value, and I think this might have been a topic, Laura, of one of your meetings recently, what are some of the things you guys think allow you to demonstrate and prove that you bring unique value? Open to the floor.
Hey,
I
Rick,
think-
Liz here.
Talking about who you are and the culture fit would certainly be part of that.
That's fantastic. That's right at the top of my list. Great one.
I was going to add that when you can, tell a story of an experience you had, of a project you worked on or a solution that you delivered, that's at least parallel to what they're going through.
Right.
I mean, I think that can be really powerful.
Very powerful. And by the way, that's the reason people ask behavioral type questions in interviews is everybody can talk a good game. Can you demonstrate that from your past, you've actually faced that issue in the past and you've solved it? And they don't want to know just that you've solved it, but they want to know how you solved it. One of the tricks of the trades, by the way, of recruiters is when I ask candidates questions, and I've learned this from people more experienced than myself, to dig a little deeper. If they say, I improved, growth year over year by 25%, usually the follow-up was, can you talk a little bit about how you did that? If you're not able to provide the follow-up information and data, it's probably not going to be received well. But if you can talk, ad infinitum about how you did it and you do it passionately, then we know you actually did it and you're proud of it, which is why one of the biggest questions people get is, talk to me about something you're very proud of, an accomplishment you achieved that you're very proud of, and talk to me about how you did it. That's a behavioral question. It's not a yes, no. We want to know the details. Now, we don't want you to talk for an hour, but we do want some granular details so that we know you actually did it. It's not just fluff. Great point. Anybody else? All right, I'll give you my top few. And guys, in no way is this an exhaustive list, because I could go on and on. As I told Laura, I could talk about this for 3 hours. Unique value, cultural fit was mentioned. Absolutely, cultural fit is a big deal. Nobody wants, your culture starts at the top. It's all about your leader. Your leader sets the tone for the organization. So if that leader is not a good cultural fit for your mission, values, your guiding principles, where you're going as an organization, as a company, then you're not gonna make it past that interview phase. So and cultural fit, folks, is such a subjective. Everybody has a prospectus or a mission statement that's on the wall. Most of the companies I go to, I'll ask people, "Hey, what's your mission statement?" I don't know. It's over there on the wall. Nobody can recite it, but they know they have it. Good organizations, it's proliferated throughout the company. Everybody knows what the mission is. Everybody knows what their part is to play in achieving that mission. But I would tell you that if you're in an interview at a very high level for a high level position, you want to find out you want to ask them to define what their culture means.
Am I the only one that lost Rick, or did everybody lose him?
I was just
We
gonna
lost
ask the
him.
We all
same
lost him, I think.
thing.
He'll probably need to log off for just a little bit. This happens to me sometimes. No, he's back already.
Laura, this is excellent so far.
Oh, good.
Yeah, great one.
There he is. We have you back, Rick.
I'm back.
Yay.
I am so sorry, folks. My iMac just crashed, just rebooted. I don't know if I'm doing an update or what. So much for the presentation. But we can still continue, and I'm sorry for that technical difficulty. So I think we were talking about unique value, right? So let me highlight this here. So are you a good cultural fit is a big one. The other one is, are you able to help solve their most compelling problems? And one of the tips, and I don't give advice to candidates. I don't like to tee up candidates that are interviewing. I don't like to tell them the questions that are going to be asked or prepare them in any way, other than I say, do your homework. Go onto their website, read their press releases, find out if they're in the news. What are some of the challenges they're facing? And as was mentioned earlier, if you've faced any of these challenges in the past and you've overcome these obstacles, be able to articulate how you did that and the fact that you did. Be able to demonstrate in the interview that you know what their challenges are and you're uniquely qualified to handle them because perhaps you've done it in the past. So all of that is going to lead to the answer to our third question, which I'll get to here in a minute. But the ability to both understand what their pressing issues are and that you can uniquely address those issues is going to increase your unique value. So all things being equal, if they feel like you're better qualified to solve the issues that they are facing today and you understand those issues and can articulate what they are and that you can address them directly, that's going to improve your chances of landing that job. So that's another way to increase your unique value. I would also tell you that one of the things you may want to do is invest in some sort of an assessment. And I really don't care what assessment you like. The top ones that I'm seeing used today are Enneagram, the Colby Index, the Marcus Buckingham Strength Finders. He's got a book called Now Discover Your Strengths. It's called Strength Finders. And Laura, anybody that's not aware of those, I'll be glad to provide the links to you that you can share with them in the notes. But those assessments will provide a third-party documentation, which is unbiased, that when you say, I bring to the table these unique strengths, and they've been verified by this assessment or that assessment or the other. Now, many companies will conduct these as a part of their hiring process. Not always. What I would tell you is don't wait for them to ask you to take an assessment. Take one ahead of time and provide the results in advance. What does that do? It proves that you're easy to do business with. You're proactive. You're self-directed. You possess all of those qualities and traits that they're looking for in the successful candidate. And you're already demonstrating that through the hiring process that you have those skills. Does that make sense? Good. The other thing I would say is once you understand what their issues are and you believe that you can address those issues directly and uniquely, again, be able to explain that. I've had candidates without prompting from me or the client company put together a 30, 60, 90 or the first 100-day plan. Here's what I plan on doing in the first 100 days to address these issues that I think are on the table. Most of the time, the first 30 days are mostly assessing. What are the issues? I'm going to do an assessment. I think I know what the issues are. Here's what's in the press. Here's what's on your website. I'm going to find out if that jibes with reality when I meet with your teams. But once you do that, what are you going to do about it? If you've already thought about how to do the job and you're mentally doing the job before you get it, your chances of getting that job are going to go up. Because obviously that's going to improve your likability. They love self-directed, self-motivated leaders. And you're demonstrating that you can do the job well. You're already planning on how to do it well, if that makes any sense. Any questions on that one before we move on?
I do have one question. I tend to work with smaller companies, and I apologize not being on video. My bandwidth is a little sketchy. I tend to work with smaller companies, and a lot of times it's hard to find anything in the news or press releases or additional information. Any advice if you're not able to find a lot there?
I'll tell you that I believe in what I call guerrilla warfare. When I'm trying to find candidates and interview folks or do market research on companies, I oftentimes will find out who am I connected with on LinkedIn or social media that already works at that company. And if I don't have a connection, I endeavor to get one, if that makes sense. And so, and I'll tell you, one of the tricks that I've used is find out what product or service they're selling and marketing, get a lead for them, reach out to their vice president or senior vice president of sales and tell them you have a lead for them and you want to talk to them. So you bring value. And when you get them on the phone, say, hey, I'm trying to learn about your company because I'm actually interested in one of your leadership positions. And so you bring value and you ask for, it's a fair exchange of value. When you do that, many times you'll hear things that you won't see in the press. You'll get the behind the curtains story, if that makes any sense.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Great question, by the way. All right. Well, one idea around this concept of bringing unique value is if you don't like the rules of the game, change the game. There's a really good book out called Becoming a Category of One. It's by Joe Calloway. He lives in Nashville. He's a great guy. He's done consulting with all the top Fortune 100 companies. And what he says is demonstrate that you're willing to do what the job that others are either unwilling or unable to do. So if there's something that you can do uniquely that you don't think anybody else either can do or would do, then what I would tell you is demonstrate that, be able to talk about that, change the rules of the game. The final question, guys. So first question was likability factor. How likable are you? The next thing they ask each other is, does this person bring unique value to our organization? Right. And the final one is, all things being equal, who provides the lower risk? Who provides the lowest risk? Who's the low risk option as a candidate? As I said earlier, there are no hiring decisions that involve zero risk. They all involve risk. But many times it comes down to, all things being equal, it's the person who presents the least amount of perceived risk. Does that make any sense? So how do you lower your risk? How can you as a candidate demonstrate that you're a lower risk option than someone else? I'd love your take on that. Any ideas?
Showing enthusiasm, I think.
Yes, I love that.
I
And
think that
stability.
The
What was
unique
that last
value, if you're able to address their issues.
Correct. Anything else?
I think if you've been there, done that, and you can
Yes.
demonstrate that you have had maybe not, exact issues, but in leadership roles, just your ability and how you problem solve and attack a problem is
Right.
going to demonstrate what you're able to do for them.
Exactly. Anybody else? Well, let me ask you a question that everybody can relate to. How many have bought something on Amazon or online before? If anybody doesn't raise their hand to that, liar, liar, pants on fire. We've all bought online. When you're buying something perhaps you've never bought before, and maybe there's a little risk involved, that's the reason I'm bringing this example up. What are some of the things you do as a consumer of that product before you make the hiring decision? You read the what?
Reviews.
Yes, you read the reviews. Ding, 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 we have a winner. You read the reviews. So do you think when someone is thinking about hiring you as their chief operating officer or chief financial officer, whatever the position, do you think they want to check the reviews out on you? Yes, they do. They're going to check your social media. They're going to check your online presence. But where are they going to probably look first? What's the first logical place people are going to look?
LinkedIn.
Yes. So I'm going to teach you guys a trick that it's a little hack and it's not that complicated. It's probably worth a lot of money, but I'm giving it to you free, courtesy of the COO Forum, Bill Shepard and Laura Weichel and Fiona. Guys, if you don't have a lot of recommendations and referrals on your LinkedIn profile, go get them. And I'm going to explain a very easy way to do it. If you're like me, and I think a lot of you are, you probably have given a lot of recommendations. You've probably colleagues, coworkers, superiors, peers, subordinates. You've gone out and you've recommended them. You've given them glowing references. And you probably never said, hey, you know what? I gave you a recommendation on LinkedIn about 3 years ago. Would you mind doing the same for me? What do you think people are going to say if you've given them a recommendation and you ask them to do the same for you? Only if you feel comfortable and you feel so led. I'm not telling you to do. I'm asking if you wouldn't mind. It would really mean a lot to me. Do you think most people would give you a recommendation on LinkedIn? Yes, they will. They will do it. I had 4 or 5 referrals on LinkedIn, and I had given 40 or 50 or more. I forget what the number was. It was crazy. It was a large number. And a friend, a colleague said, Rick, why don't you just ask those folks to give you recommendations? And I said, okay. Overnight, I went to like 20 or whatever it was, 15 or 20, just because people said, yeah, I'll be glad to do that. Well, if all of those are glowing, that's like a built-in reference letter. Now, everybody knows if you supply your own references, those are teed up. Those are people that are going to say good things about you. But when someone takes the time to write a detailed recommendation on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has an incredible amount of credibility. And when people do that, it's like a reference, it's like a referral, it's like a review on Amazon. And trust me, I look at people's extracurricular, their volunteer activities, what they're involved in outside of work, and I look at their reviews. I look at the LinkedIn recommendations. That's a really great thing everybody needs to do. Do you know somebody that they know? Endeavor to find some mutual connection, because again, that lowers your risk. Does the role fit nicely with your career path? That's another question you want to. They're going to be asking that question. I've got a search going on right now where a person is seems a little bit overqualified. I'm sure you've probably all seen that if you've been in your career for a while. And this person has some legitimate reasons they shared with me why they would be willing to take what appears to be one level step down in their career to get into the right culture. The comp is about a wash. And this client is really concerned that it appears to be a step back. Well, those are the kind of things they're thinking about. Get that on the table and talk about it. If you think they're thinking about a question that is a concern, what I would tell you is proactively address that concern before it becomes a question. Answer the question before they even ask it. That's another issue. And is there anything else we should know? Any gotchas? One of the things I love when I talk to candidates, if there's anything I need to know that might be of a concern to a client company, let's have that conversation up front and be proactive. Or as they say in PR, public relations, let's get ahead of the narrative, right? let's shape the narrative. That's another thing you want to do. I've got a number of others, but I told Laura and Bill I wanted to save about 20 minutes for Q&A. So guys, again, I can talk all day about this. What I'd love to do right now is just open it up for Q&A. And I apologize for the technical difficulties here with my iMac shutting down unexpectedly. Any questions from the group about any of this or anything else that you'd like to ask an executive recruiter?
Hey, Rick, this is
Yeah.
Joanne Giordano, and I spent the bulk of my career with a company that does not allow reference giving. And so I am really limited. Yep, it is absolutely true. And I like even in a job situation. So getting my last job was very difficult, of course, but now, I have new folks and I do have quite a few recommendations on my referral, but many are from people who worked for me. Just because I thought that was an interesting data point. I have my last CEO relationship on there, and I have somebody who is he's a very high up, he was a vendor of ours, but I thought that was a way to do it. But I'm trying to think, like, I'm really limited in that, and obviously I can have that conversation with a hiring manager or a recruiter if it gets that far, but any other suggestions about what might be impactful there?
When you say they won't give a recommendation, I know that if someone calls your previous employer, HR is only authorized to say, yes, you worked there and from what date to what date. They can't tell why you left or what, or anything, or that they loved you or didn't like you or anything like that. But that doesn't preclude individuals from giving you recommendations. But are you saying the company policy is not to give referrals?
That is
okay.
Correct. That is
that's a horse of a different color. Then, I would get ahead of that and make sure you just have other complimentary referrals and recommendations. Now, if you work for that company for a very, very long time, the obvious question to me would be, well, if you've been there for a long time, apparently they liked you. Were you promoted in that position at all at that company? So if you had multiple positions at the same company, they usually don't promote people they don't like or who aren't performing well. So I would just point to those immutable facts that I was there from X to X and I had these progressive titles. Clearly I produced, and then be honest with them about why you left, whatever that is, and just tell them about the policy.
Yeah. Okay. Very good, Ben. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Joanne. Anybody else?
I had a question about referrals as well, kind of along the same lines as hers, as far as what makes the most impact? Is it people who are reporting to you? Is it people that are your peers, your supervisors? Does it matter? Is it a combination?
I will tell you that as a recruiter, I typically ask for 3 referrals, one from a supervisor, one from a peer, one from a subordinate. Try to get 3, one from each of those categories. We aren't always able to get that, but that's what we try to get. I would tell you if you're applying or you're in contention for a senior leadership role, you may have been the top person at that company. So there's really nobody you reported to except perhaps the owner. So in that case, peers and subordinates would be super important. Subordinates tend to have the most weight. Many times peers, especially, let's say you're the COO and someone else was the CFO. They knew the financial side of the house, but they really weren't involved in operations. Could they they could talk, well, as far as I know, everybody in operations loved him or her. But I really didn't, we met to do annual strategy or what have you. But I would tell you that subordinates probably are the most important, but I like to get one of each if I can.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Is that Shannon?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Hey, Rick, I've had this situation where I've had recruiters say, hey, you're the best qualified candidate on paper for this spec. And yet the hiring manager chose somebody with the direct industry experience, where my industry experience was adjacent or it was extremely close. And I had more capabilities and more accomplishments. And so I feel like I've been on the receiving end of this risk thing a lot. It's
Yes.
getting old, let's say.
Yes.
So I'm particularly interested in like anything else in this space, because I feel like, you know, my job as a candidate is to help like connect the dots where that I can relate my experience and my accomplishment as close as possible in the language they use in their industry, like
Right.
trying to make it easy for them and really relatable. And I still feel like I'm kind of hitting against
Yeah.
this issue.
No, that's a great question, and that comes up often. Was that Liz?
Yes.
Yeah. So Liz, here's what I would tell you. One of the things that can improve your likability, your unique value proposition, as well as lower your risk, is to be able to articulate very precisely what your transferable skills are. And there's a lot of people, me included, who have reinvented themselves. You maybe were in industry A and you went to industry B, and then you gained experience there, and then you maybe migrated and got a promotion to industry C. And what I would tell you is the fact that you've made those transitions in the past is proof that you can do it again in the future. So one of the exercises I have candidates do is sit down and list what are all of the things that you did, or the skills you possess, I should say, that allowed you to be successful at company B. Let's say they're your last position. Okay. Are any of those skills that you could use at the new job, in the new industry, or in the new functional role? Yeah, more than likely. And what's funny is our search firm is not vertically oriented to one industry. I tell everybody my niche is leadership, regardless of the industry or function, because it is. Everybody who's looking for a leader, they're looking for about 8 or 10 core qualities and skills that all leaders possess, regardless of the industry they're in. So if you know ahead of time, Liz, that that's going to be a concern of the interviewee or the HR leader, come right out and say, look, I know some people have looked at my resume and think I'm only successful in industry B because that's the industry I've been in for the last 15, 20 years, X years, whatever it is. However, let me explain why I was successful. Because I had this skill and this skill and this skill, and every last one of those are coming with me wherever I go. If I go to a new industry and bring all those skill sets with me, all that's packed in my bag. As soon as I sit down at the desk, I'm going to unpack those skills, and I'm going to bring them to bear for you. And when you explain it that way, they go, yeah, that's true. Your work ethic, your integrity, all those things that don't show up on a spreadsheet, but every person is looking for in their leadership, in their leaders, in their leadership team. Those are things you possess. You just need to articulate that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Explore that. That's one of those things where you go back and list them, and then develop 1 or 2 really good real life stories that demonstrate that you possess that transferable skill. So not only am I telling you I have it, but here's an example of how I used it. And guess what? I could do the same thing at your company, because when you get into their head, really what you want them thinking when they look at your resume and when they interview you is, wow, if they could do that, if this person could do that for their company, I wonder what they could do for us. That's what you want them thinking. So how do you get them to think that? You demonstrate that you produced all those results. Any other questions? I have another thing about this results I'd like to share, but I want to make sure I get all the questions. Great question, Liz. Thank you.
Rick, this is Kurt. Question on, and this could be a recruiter's personal preference, but is there any method to sequencing of presenting candidates? I've had a recruiter say, I don't want to present you right out the gate. They're going to get through these 3, and then, So
yeah,
iPhone.
Yeah. It's better to be first or last or in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know that human nature is that you remember if the last candidate that comes in is really great, they tend to, and you leave a lasting memory and you're memorable. It can sometimes be a benefit.
Yeah.
But by the same token, what if the very first person they interview was just outstanding and set the bar so high that nobody else measures up? I've seen that happen too. I would tell you, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I prefer to be first or last and not in the middle, because you can kind of get caught up in the middle. If I have a choice, many times you don't have a choice.
Sure.
But yeah, there is some human psychology to that. And, even in collegiate recruiting, a lot of times the last college that gets that on-site visit lands the recruit. It happens a lot more than you think. And there are psychological reasons for that. It's a great question.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, by the way, I present candidates in alphabetical order. I don't tell the candidate my preference. I let them tell me first, and then I tell them, because I don't want to bias their opinion of the candidates. Anybody else? Liz, what was the question you asked just a second ago?
Well, it's on the theme of how to de-risk, and you were talking about, you wanted to add some more about, I think it was references.
Yeah, I would tell you that lowering the risk in their mind, there's a thing about if you go into an office with a resume, hat in hand, resume and briefcase, and you walk in and you're an unknown to them, there's an element of risk that is perceived with that transaction. But if you get referred in by somebody that works there, or by a recruiter, or by a colleague, or somebody in an association of theirs, just having one more level of separation from Kevin Bacon can take you from the unknown to, no, I kind of know that person. And this is one of the things when I was in sales training years ago, you try to get referrals from happy customers, but you also, you just want to get a referral from anybody who knows you and knows the quality of work you do. So if you find out that somebody at that company knows somebody you just talk to that person about, I'm interested in a role there. Do you know anyone there? Would you mind if I used your name that you know me? Yeah, just by mentioning their name, you jump up, some percentile in the stack of candidates, because you go from a complete unknown to a somewhat unknown. Then they look at your LinkedIn and that goes up, and then they see your online presence and you're involved in multiple charitable events and associations, and it goes up even more. Then they meet you. So it's a process, but anything you can do to lower that risk, even addressing things like, and I'll get on this touchy subject, and I'm going to finish here in about 60 to 90 seconds and let Bill, I know Bill likes to wrap up, and Laura and Fiona like to wrap up. There are some unspoken questions and issues that companies ask. And, I don't want to get into any sort of controversial issues, guys, but I will tell you that things like age discrimination and discrimination of other types are real. And so anything that you perceive might be an issue for a hiring company, what I would tell you, and by the way, companies will think that because they hired a recruiter, we can go do something illegal, ask you what you're currently making. In some states, that's illegal now, to ask what people are currently earning in terms of income. Obviously, that's going to come out, but they can't ask about your age and all the taboo questions, that are kind of hands off, right? Taboo. But they think about those things. So I've had client companies, for example, say, we're looking for somebody with a lot of runway. A lot of runway is code for young, by the way. And so my response immediately is, and I'm now in that protected class, by the way, is given the choice between someone who can really do the job well and knock the ball out of the park, or someone with a lot of runway, which of those two would you prefer? They typically say, well, when somebody can do the job well. So yeah, that's what I thought you said. So I'm going to endeavor to bring you a really highly qualified person who can do the job, regardless of the runway. Understanding that what they mean is they don't want to hire somebody as CEO or COO and have them work 3 years and then retire, right? They want somebody who can do 5, 10, 15 years. They're going to make a big investment in you. On the other hand, if you hire a great coach for your sports team, and that person is desirable enough to where other sporting teams want to hire your person, that means you made a great decision, right? even if you get 3 or 4 great years out of a phenomenal leader, that's better than getting 10 or 12 years out of a mediocre leader. Wouldn't you agree? And so when you put it in those terms, all of a sudden, okay, it's a whole different decision. So you need to shape that question and sometimes get ahead of that question. I would tell you any other controversial issue that you're concerned about, that you think they may be worried about, that may be perceived as a quote unquote risk to them, get that out on the table, right? You shape the narrative. You bring it up in a positive way, in a way that you know is the way that you want them to see it. And of course, obviously be truthful and honest about it. But I would say getting ahead of that, it's always better that I can deal with anything I know about. It's the issues I don't know about that I can't solve, right? So there's my point. Guys, I'm out of time. Laura, Bill, sorry for the technical difficulties. Any other last minute questions, or do you guys want to close it up?
No, it doesn't sound like any last minute questions. Rick, thank you so much for all the tips and tricks and just being very candid about this. I think it was very helpful to everybody. I got some comments in the chat about that. So thank you very much. Next week, we're actually taking a break because it's Memorial Day week. And I think that some people may be extending their vacations, and I hope you enjoy that. I hope maybe you do have some fun things planned for the weekend. And then the following week after that, we are going to have Steve Moss, who's with an onboarding consultancy called Executive Springboard, and he's going to talk to us about after the offer, succeeding in your next job. He's got a top 10 list similar to Rick's top 3. So hopefully you all enjoy a great week, and we'll see you back. And if anybody, I mentioned at the beginning of this call, go back and listen to Derek Arden's presentation last week on negotiating. It was fantastic. And worth a listen. We got into a rich Q&A toward the end and worthwhile. So that would be a good thing to put on your Tuesday next week if you're in town. So everybody enjoy, and thank you again, Rick. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being here.
Enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.